Hello, this is your favorite off-center of-screen Hoosk. This is Dustin DaHusky, and just do some more talking, which I'm sure you're either annoyed of it or it's background noise. That's okay. I do my best. So, what's on today's video? So I mentioned about the environment, I think on a pandemic talk. And I thought maybe I would discuss an aspect of one other thing. Electric vehicles. And I thought to myself, would I buy any of the electric cars today? And the answer is no. Tesla fanboys, calm your tits. I probably don't have a single fan that actually owns a Tesla. So that was probably worthless. So, would I buy a current or used or current production electric car, fully 100% electric car? The answer is no, and that's because cost. They're expensive now. And while they've come a long way in the last 10 years, don't get me wrong, Tesla's really come a long way as far as making a charge on a battery pack stretch out really, really, really far. It's not good enough just yet. And it'll take another 10 years or 15 years before battery charge technology really, really advanced itself to make it an incredible competitor to internal combustion engines. Which I'm going to say this, and I'm probably not going to dig too much about it throughout the rest of this video, is the internal combustion engine still has a future in our world. It's going to be reduced in importance and in frequency as the decades move on. Some countries are banning the new production of ICEs by either 2030, 2040, or 2050. That doesn't say anything about current cars already produced and grandfathered in at that point. I'm sure there's going to be a reduction of these vehicles unless they're going to be used for classic vehicle purposes only, which, yeah, we may have 54 years worth of petroleum left. I think it'll last the next century, but only in the terms that we're going to use less of it, we're going to make it stretch, and mostly it's going to be used by enthusiasts and maybe still some heavy industry for the time being. But as far as this video is concerned, I'm not talking about heavy industry as far as vehicles are concerned, but I'm going to talk about passenger vehicles, vehicles that typically are found on the streets every day, on every street, in every town, in every city, in every country. So, would I buy a new car today? Well, really, it's all about price for me. Yeah, hey, if I can afford a brand new Tesla, which with my current wages I can't, would I afford, if I could, a brand new Tesla, knowing that, okay, its range is okay, it could be still better, but it can be tolerated, definitely, for now. Of course, performance is great. Although I'm going to go to a triad of what an electric car is going to be in the future, and it's going to go back to shitbox levels of performance in our future, which, you know what, I'm excited for. But 85,000, 70,000, 90,000, 120,000, usually these are the costs of, I don't know about 120,000, but usually a Tesla is like 70 to 90,000. And these electric cars are future. However, you really want a good electric car, you get a Tesla. You can get a Nissan Leaf. They're still making the Chevy Volt. That's still a current production car, if I'm not mistaken, or they just ended production in 2020, because I don't think they're actually selling that car in the 2021 current Chevy lineup. As far as their website is concerned, they don't make a single mention about a Chevy Volt. So, or even the Chevy Bolt itself, I don't even think they even produce that at all. So, what's their What are they going to provide in the future? I don't know. But as far as I know, electric cars do exist by different manufacturers, but they're a little bit more expensive, and you're still, for right now, you're cheaper to be buying a gasoline or diesel-powered vehicle, although diesel has its issues too. They say it's cleaner. No, whoever says that diesel burns cleaner also has a bridge to sell. Whether if it's got a turbo or not to clean up emissions as best it could, diesel is always filthy. It's been the filthiest type of source of propulsion from a petroleum product in an engine that there is. You couldn't get diesel to be clean by any standard. It's just damn filthy. If you ever looked at the diesel nozzle at the pump, you notice that that is filthy as hell. That's what's going in your tank, which is going in your engine, and you can only imagine what is coming out of the tailpipe, which is soot. While gasoline produces carbon, which isn't great by any stretch, but soot's even filthier. That's why if you go anywhere in Europe, every building is covered in soot. It's just unbelievable. Even when I remember in Europe in the 1990s, I'm that old, before the Eurozone, when France was using the francs and the Germans were using the marks, and Italy the lira. I am that old. I have currency from all those countries before the euro was ever a thing. Shit. But I remember clearly Paris in the 1990s, soot was everywhere on every building, on every square inch, or every hectare, but it was everywhere. But electric vehicles, I want to talk a little bit about that. Now, what about in 10 years? What about in 15 years? What about in 20 years? Would I buy an electric car, fully electric car? And probably the answer is going to be yes, because you know what? I love gasoline, I love engines, but that's kind of where the future is pointing us. And to be honest, it's also a future where classic cars are also could go as well. I think some people are going to keep their classic cars unmolested. Some people are going to definitely cherish their cars a lot more when maybe gasoline becomes a bit more expensive. It's still going to be around. I think it's going to be incredibly expensive. They'll make classic cars in a very, very expensive hobby for the rich. Or maybe not. I don't know. I think at that point, in order to get people to electric cars, they're going to have to make gasoline more expensive to get people to switch over to more cheaper electric energy. Who knows? And then maybe the more we use electricity, maybe that might go up in price as well. So we might be looking at both energies in different lights in 10, 20 years. But what am I looking for in a electric car? Well, certainly like a hatchback, and to be honest, you can make an electric car in anything. You can make an electric truck, you can make an electric company van, you can make a electric subcompact car, compact car, micro car, city car, mid-size, full-size, you name it. And then SUVs, so you get your CUVs, which is pretty much compact size cars, passenger cars that are much more taller, but not so much more useful in practicality. You're better off buying a ordinary compact passenger car instead of just a slightly taller car. I don't like CUVs. They're starting to grow on me, but I still hate them because they're still pointless. Get yourself an ordinary car. Yeah, you lose 2 inches in headroom, but you actually still get the same amount of cargo capacity. You lose some four-wheel drive capability, but you get about 20 to 30% more better fuel efficiency. And Americans would rather go CUV and SUVs. Yeah. And SUVs, trucks, whatnot, of all sizes. I still will want a compact size electric car that's a 5-door hatchback. I find that more practical. If two doors is nice, it's sporty. But that's why I have the Skylark, and I don't need a two-door car for ordinary, everyday work. Four doors has always worked well for me. My first car was a Cavalier sedan. My second car was a Spectra sedan, although they never came in a coupe, but they had a five-door hatchback, which I was hoping to get and did, and stuff happened. And then I had to settle with the sedan, which was still not a bad choice, actually. And then my current car is now finally a hatchback, Forte 5, which I love this car to death. So I know that I like four doors. So my future is still going to be four doors and a hatch. But I don't see myself getting into a CUV, because you know what? The extra headroom is not worth it. And they're going to charge you an extra $8,000 just because you want 2 inches of headroom inside your car, and probably maybe anywhere from 2 to 5 cubic feet of cargo interior space lost because you want a CUV. My Kia Forte 5 has, I think, 56 cubic feet of interior space when the back seats are folded down and the parcel shelf in the back lifted out. Some CUVs can't even touch that, and it's supposed to be a bigger vehicle, and it isn't. They're actually the same size, and the dimensions are even more cramped than my own car, so you know what? Okay, I know exactly what size, what type of car I'm looking into. But what am I looking into price? Well, battery packs last about 10 to 15 years before they're totally junk. Earlier electric cars, they lasted even shorter. You might be able to get 6 to 8 years out of a battery pack, and before they totally go flat on their charge, and then now all of a sudden you're shelling out anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 on a new replacement pack, which they do make replacement battery packs for all sorts of electric cars, past and present. They're just expensive. Yeah, it's a lot of pain in the ass. But once you replace the battery pack, you have another good, which with modern packs will last longer, anywhere from 8 to 12 to 15 years, depending on where you live in the country, pretty much climate. Heat and cooling cycles really damage the longevity and service life of your battery. Like the battery of your gasoline-powered car. In Wisconsin, the average battery lasts about 7 years because, you know what? Eventually, it's not so much the heat, because Wisconsin doesn't get that hot, but then again, last few years it's been getting pretty boiling, but it's kind of not typical, but it is becoming the norm. Hence, electric vehicles. We're going to try to help the environment as best we can, even though we're still fucked. But if we at least still continue on this trend, we can still get somewhere. But battery packs is one thing that I always fear about these electric cars. The Honda Insight, I believe it was America's first ready-to-go, non-leasable, like you can lease a Honda Insight back in the day. However, GM EV1, they also had an EV S10, they had a EV RAV4, if I remember correctly. And there might be another manufacturer that did make a factory or like a somewhat pseudo-factory conversion of another vehicle. But those are only leasable cars. You can only lease them. You couldn't fully buy them. And then when the leases were up, they all got pooled together and then flattened like a dinosaur's ball sack. So the Honda Insight was the first fully electric car. No, it was not fully electric. It had an internal combustion engine. So, okay. Forget what I said in the past. But it still used as a battery pack. But once those battery packs go flat, you're looking at $2,000. Even the Honda ZR-V, the two-door, sporty-looking. Is it fully electric? No, it's. I think it's the same type of propulsion arrangement like the first Insight. Those battery packs go from anywhere from like $2,000 to $3,500, I guess, depending on what aftermarket brands you're looking at. Although I think Honda still makes them anyway. It would rather have you buy their factory battery packs anyway, so they may have capitalized on that. But you're still paying a good $4,000 of all the battery pack and the labor to put it in. So if your car is only worth $4,000 and you're putting that much money into a battery pack, it rises your value up for the car because now it's got a new battery pack. You can sell the car for exactly what you bought it for. So actually, you may not actually get any money for it. So that means you're actually putting in the repair for an electric car to actually use it. Yeah, pretty much this whole short segment within this video, why I think the battery still has long ways to go is you have brake fluid. I don't know if brake fluid is a petroleum-based product, but that may be the only petroleum-based product in an electric car, and it's brake fluid. And to be honest, it's permissible. People can accept that, and brake fluid is a good way of transferring hydraulic compression forces on calipers or drums to slow a vehicle down, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. We're not going back to mechanical brakes, because I'll tell you this, I've driven cars with mechanical brakes from the 1930s. They're garbage. Oh my god. They're awful. And to think Henry Ford was hesitant on actually using hydraulic brakes well into the late 30s until he finally broke down and says, fuck. You know what? 1939, we're gonna... Or is it 1940? Or is it 38? It's getting hazy. Anyway, I need to make an outline of what I need to talk about, but you know what? It's kind of the story of my life. I just kind of go about the way whatever road is right in front of me, and I'm going to take whatever fork that comes at me next. So 15, 20 years from now, I could be buying an electric car. What am I exactly expecting? Well, of course, electric charging stations everywhere. But also now you're going to be thinking about you parking on the street. And you got jackasses that would probably like to fuck around with you. I'm going to tell you this. Unless you have your own little parking garage with your own little station that you can lock off, or your own garage, the electric car is not good for the suburbs of a city. None at all. Because if you have, like, parking meters, if you have little charging stations like parking meters along a street, you park your car outside because you may not have the luxury of a garage where you live, well, people say that people are moving closer to the city. I think when the electric car becomes more commonplace, I think people are going to be moving away from the city because they realize there's no easy way to charge a car all the time, and you may not have the opportunity to all the time. Unless you have your own dedicated space, or you have wireless charging to cars, which, you know what, constantly charging your car all over the place without ever having the need to recharge physically, that'd be the infrastructural dream that would actually promote the electric car as the beacon of the future. Right now, I don't know if anyone's willing to do that yet. So very much so, if you're buying an electric car, you have a garage. And if you don't have a garage, well, you're going to charge your car during the day, and when you get home, you're not charging it at all. So you're literally depending on stored battery potential to get to where you need to go. So if anything, you're probably going to be charging your car at your workplace. At that point, that would be it, but that's still not going to stop anyone from fucking around and unplugging you while you're at work, and then realize you're out of the charge and you may have to stay another hour just to make sure that your car gets some juice to get back home. So again, there's a lot of these things that a lot of people don't realize is some locations are not friendly to electric cars. Just antics. And you know what? That's something that we're going to have to get used to in the future is is there a very good way to make sure that no one's not going to fuck with you if your car is parked overnight? Because a lot of people who have will have a garage and have an electric car, they will have definitely a charging station in their garage to make sure the car is always charged all the time. So really, the electric car is going to favor suburbia. Well, I mentioned suburbia. More urban, or more within metropolitan cities. So literally on the fringes of the cities and beyond. Okay, so if we can get to a point where we can, and if we can make batteries that is not so filthy as making an ordinary vehicle. Right now, to make a Prius, making the battery pack, it's producing more smog to make the battery pack of any electric and hybrid vehicle in the United States and around the world is all made in China. Nearly all battery packs for vehicles are made in China because they have the highest lithium reserves in the world, so they have monopoly on that. So we're literally getting our battery packs from China, which is probably going to be filthy in the way that they're being manufactured from start to finish. You're better off buying a Hummer, and a Hummer will actually pollute a lot less in its lifetime than it did to make your batteries. That's another thought. We have to find a new way to produce a battery that does not pollute the atmosphere before it even gets installed into a vehicle and then it actually leaves an assembly line somewhere else. So not only before it even leaves the Chinese factory, which already produced enough smoke, now it's going on a cargo ship, which pollutes a little bit. But when you think about it, a cargo ship actually is pretty efficient. It's maybe the most efficient form of transportation there ever is, because it actually, while it burns gallons a second, it's actually probably the most fuel efficient thing there ever is as far as transporting as much product as you can. Then trains are second, semi-trucks third, and planes fourth. Planes are not that efficient. They're great for getting stuff anywhere, everywhere, fast, but you're going to be paying big bucks for that, and it shows. So you gotta have to convince me that the batteries are going to be produced as clean as possible, because there's no point in pursuing an electric vehicle future if your batteries pollute much more than a internal combustion engine ever could in 20 years. Because factories pollute tons and tons of hydrocarbons, which is why I said buy a Hummer. You'll actually still burn less hydrocarbon emissions than what it takes to build one Prius battery. That's true. So, find a way to make a cleaner battery pack. Second of all, the technology behind a battery pack that will give you 400 plus miles on a charge. Not just that, you're going to have to find something that's more convincing to people to buy. Hell, 500, 600 miles on a charge. Now that is kind of nice. If you don't have to charge your car as often, you may only need to charge your car maybe, depends on how much you drive, maybe once every 4 weeks, maybe once every 6, 7, 8 weeks. Really depends. But that'd be really, really fantastic. Because right now, I think the average Tesla, I'm not too savvy on Teslas. Maybe not as much as I should. But I think they get about 300, 400, 450 on a charge. Someone did a test, a road trip from New York City to Los Angeles or something like that on 2 or 3 charges on a Tesla. That might be pretty comparable with an electric car, electric car with a gasoline-powered car. I think that's pretty comparable. In fact, probably spot on or even better. But we're going to have to go on cost. This is the big ticket. So I find my 5-door hatchback compact car. Hopefully we're still making them in America, because you know what? If everyone's buying an SUV, we're never going to get 400 miles on a charge, because the thing is too damn heavy to get that far. So I have exactly the car I'm looking for. Perfect mileage, or perfect range. Mileage is going to be no longer a thing. We're going to be testing things out by range, which is going to be interesting. How much it's going to cost you? You want to buy a bare bones, basic electric car. This is where the electric car triad is going to be. Do you want it fast? Do you want it cheap? Or do you want it to go far? And honestly, you probably only have to pick two of them. So Tesla is the perfect example of, I would say, speed and range. But it's not cheap. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Even their cheapest car is, what, 40 grand? And yeah, it's half the cost of what an average Tesla goes, but what's that, the Model Y? Seriously, Tesla, get ordinary car names, because you know what? There's a reason why Ford stopped giving their car models model designations, because it gets confusing after a while. Model N, Model B, Model T, A, B. I don't think they made a C, though. And after that, they kind of stopped, which, thank fucking God, because just give it a normal name, and people might actually even be more warm to it. So, you want a cheap electric car. We're going back to the early days of the mid-70s to probably the early 90s of shitbox-tacular. I'm talking about cars that underperformed, well, no performance at all. But it did the job, and it was cheap. And got good gas mileage. In this case, you're going to get rid of the fast requirement on an electric car, and you're going to want both cheap, and you want to make sure that it's light, and has a good battery range. And that can still be done. But how cheap can you go? And how many options are you even going to get? Of course, all cars come with electric windows, power locks, so you know what, that's kind of a given. But is it going to be totally bare bones like Chevy Bolt, where their seat fabric is so god-awful that you really have to wonder, you spend 40 grand for this, and it looks much, much better on a $12,000 2010 Hyundai Accent hatchback, which for that time was the cheapest car you can get in America. And I think even that car would have better quality seats, like the fabric, the plastics. Regular Cars made a review on a Chevy Bolt, and he was pretty disgusted with, you're getting ripped off. But it's typical GM. But you're getting ripped off bad, and 40 grand is kind of too much for what you get. But hey, it's the beginning of the electric car revolution, and I don't think it's going to fully take off until really 15, 20 years. So you're looking at the beginnings. But 19 grand. If you can build yourself an electric car for 19 grand as a base model, or hell, even better, try to make it 15 grand. People are going to buy them like hotcakes. And they know that it's going to get good, I was going to say mileage, it's going to get good range. But they know they're not going to go fast. And normally, electric cars have electric generators on each wheel, so there's infinity torque. However, that also probably draws a lot of draws a lot of electrical current stored in batteries. I'm a physics minor. I should really know this, but it's been so long and I'm not even using it. But so you can certainly make a cheap car. However, there's more profits to be made with an expensive one, which is why you're seeing $50, $60, $70, $80,000 pickup trucks. And people are buying them like hotcakes. It's because Americans are dumb enough to buy one, because they know they want a pickup truck. And they're going to buy it anyway, and they're not going to question you at all, where when the electric car revolution comes around the corner, people are going to be a little bit more reserved. They're going to be really, really picky about, okay, so we had a Chevy Bolt back 20 years ago, so now we're looking at 2040, let's say that, and it was a total shitbox. Hey, an electric shitbox. There we go. The most expensive shitbox there ever was. It's spending $44,000 and you didn't get much for it, and the quality was still god awful. So will it still be god awful? Probably, because they're probably not going to make much money out of it. But if every brand new car costs 40 grand and more, the average American's not going to pay that much money for an average car unless you're duped into doing so. When you're making $9, $10, $12 an hour, you really can't afford a $40,000 car. You simply couldn't. On top of paying rent, you're anywhere from $600 to $1,500 smartphone, and whatever expensive luxuries that you may end up getting. Well, Americans live a very expensive lifestyle, that I've noticed. Europeans are quite frugal. Hell, more and more Mercedes-Benz are used as taxi cabs than actual passenger cars. Privately owned passenger cars. It's the truth in Europe. And they're more base model, plastic hubcap and bare bones Mercedes-Benz that actually fits more of my liking than the high levels of shit that Mercedes-Benz tries to force on Americans that say, hey, buy our luxury. And they're paying top dollar, and they know they're getting raped, but they are going to do it anyway. And with electric cars, if you don't fix the range issue, and if you do not fix the cost issue in time, very, very, very few people are going to be convinced that it's going to be the future. Because if it's something that they can't easily afford, or if they're forced to and realize, which American car debt's been a huge problem since the 1980s. 1983 is the crossover where more and more people are leasing a car than buying a car, and more people have started to get loans for a car instead of saving up and paying for it outright, or with few small, not small, but you save up a majority for a car and then you pay off a few extra installments, and you pretty much paid off your car within about a year, or even less. But, you know, people back then actually did that until Reaganomics told you to spend, and then now we have the ongoing American crisis of debt that we know today. That's another story. I don't see Americans spending 40 grand on a cheap shitbox without an engine, but on 4 electric generators and a battery pack, and the chintziest plastic there is, the thinnest fabric there is, and not a whole lot much. And this is supposed to be our future, and I do believe it is, but you're gonna have to really convince people from from hybrid and conventional internal combustion vehicles that this is going to be the way to go. You have to draw people in to make sure, hey, We're supposed to be doing this by the government to transition our portfolio of automobiles or vehicles in general, that they must be a certain percentage of electrification, or full-on electrification. That's hard words for. Eventually, we're going to have to get to this impasse that manufacturers are going to have to start selling their cars cheaper again, which is a problem. Cars have been getting expensive over the years, so much so that it's now city cars, the smallest class of cars you can get in this country, is now, of course, the cheapest. But back 10 years ago, this class of car didn't exist in the United States. You had the Hyundai Accent 3-door hatch that costs less than 10 grand brand new. Can you even get that amount for even a smaller car today? And that's the Mitsubishi Mirage, and that's our cheapest car right now. And I think it just levels just around that much, and you get a basic car. So yeah, there's so much going on. You have to tackle producing a clean enough battery that will go the extra mile. You have to find a way to make a car affordable for everyone to buy, because if you're only going to get only the people who have the extra cash burning in their pocket to buy $40, $60, $80,000 ordinary electric car that, yeah, looks exotic, but Teslas are around. They're certainly out there. They're becoming more numerous, but the problem is they're still damn expensive. And until they break a threshold that people can afford them on a general basis, which means perhaps more factories, more shifts, will be added to Tesla's manufacturing capability. Until then, we really can't get on the ball until certain criteria are met. Frankly, we're getting there. So, right now, it's expected. But if we're not getting anywhere in 15, 20 years' time, when I'm in my late 40s, and if nothing is done by then about any of these problems, I think internal combustion engines are going to be our future for a lot longer than we want. Oh, there was no crunchy for that one. Which it is our future, electric cars. But if you make it a way that only a few can purchase without the fear of it being repossessed by a bank because you cannot afford loans to pay for one, which apparently now the average American makes about $33,000 a year, and you know what? That's bullshit. Average American don't make that much money. They might make $27,000 on average. It's the average in Wisconsin, and in 2012 it was the average across the country, which was incredible. In fact, Wisconsin was slightly over the average across the country, which by only $500, which is shit. So when the average American makes, so let's say middleman, we're going to cut between 27 and 33, so $30,000. Someone makes $30,000, and a car costs, the average American electric car costs 40 grand. It's not so much different than the average $50,000 wage American paying for a $56,000, $60,000, $70,000 pickup truck. I think there's even a pickup truck that costs $100,000, which is nuts. I would rather buy a house. But that's just me, because I'm smart with my money. So, the electric car. What are my thoughts about it? I'm hesitant now because I know gasoline is so much more fun. It's polluting, it's not good for the environment, but once you get used to something that you grew up all your life and it's all that you ever known, it's scary to move on to the next thing, which is a normal human characteristic. Is you're familiar with something, you don't want it to change. Eventually, this change is going to be good for all of us. It's just we can accept the change for full electrification, but is it going to be available for us all and accessible? Is it going to be good enough to be worth its weight in gold? That's hard enough to tell. If they figure out how to do all these things in 10 years' time and make it better 10 years after that, then we have a good fighting chance that you, me, and everyone else watching this video in about 20 years' time will be driving electric cars that are going to be affordable, fun in their own way, and functional without costing a whole lot of money, and maybe a bit more easily serviceable with battery packs getting smaller and smaller, but more efficient and more, well, efficient with holding a charge for as long as it can. So yeah, so I guess, the Tesla fanboys, they're definitely getting their feet wet fully, and they're going to be the ones who are going to really, really take advantage of what's going on. But the rest of us, we're still not in the pool. We're not even in the pool area. We're barely in the locker room. We don't even have our trunks on. So, the Tesla boys and girls, they're the ones that are kind of pioneering the drive forward, but they're also the people who are willing to shell big dollars for vehicles that cost way more than a lot of people are comfortable in buying. If I wanted to spend $80,000 on a Tesla, I may actually spend that money on a house, because I see that being more worthwhile than buying a Tesla. If Tesla can buy a Chevy Cavalier-sized electric car, compact car, that's got the same amount of mileage, or same amount of range, as their other models, or even better because it's smaller, be cheap, and be exciting and fun to drive, because you got to enjoy what you drive, because if you're buying something that's not fun, there's no point in buying it. That goes for anything. You do want to buy a truck. As nothing else excites you, buy a truck. It's just you're going to be paying a lot more at sticker price and paying more at the pump. But hey, if you actually enjoy driving something, do it anyway. Don't listen to me. But the electric car and the electric truck is our future. I just hope that the manufacturers actually understand what the fuck is going on, because sometimes in the American market, manufacturing and the companies themselves don't give a fuck about the average person. They're only going to see what they see as profits. They're going to make as much hand over fist over our gutted wallets and bank accounts. So, electric car is a bright future. It's got a lot to work on because it's not perfect. And anyone says that the electric car now is perfect, they're going to be eating their shoes next week, because they know that what happens in the next year, 5 years, 10 years is going to be so much more better than right now. And that's true, because technology is getting better. The thing is, are companies going to make sure we're going to be paying for it? Or, under their greater good, which is hard enough to see, are they going to make sure that it's going to be accessible for all of it to enjoy this future together? Well, hey, we'll find out. So, if you enjoy cars, you're a total gearhead, you love oil, you love the accidental splash of gasoline in your mouth while you drop a jerry can of gasoline and it somehow just enters your mouth by accident, which happened to me once. I don't know how. It just did. I've had gasoline hit me in the eye. That's not pleasant, but getting it in the mouth is an interesting occurrence that I hope it doesn't happen again. So, I will say this, classic cars are going to be safe for the time being, because you know what? Hey, for movies in the future, you're going to have gasoline-powered cars anyway, or they're going to have this stupid speaker that's going to be imitating different engines of all these cars, which is going to be sad. If it's going to have a sound, it may as well be an engine. And if it's going to be an electric car, make it electric car. Don't try to funnel in sounds that shouldn't exist if it doesn't have the engine. So, the gearhead is not dead. It's just going to go through a bit of a transition period. And maybe kids in the next 20, 30, 40 years are going to be hipsters. Like how I am with film cameras. They're going to be buying Toyota Corollas from the 1990s. And they're going to say, look at my classic car. Hey, you know what? If it makes a Toyota Corolla from the 90s a classic car, and we're all looking at and driving in electric cars then, you know what? Hey, the better. Sometimes all the weirdness has to be saved. So, this has been Dustin DaHusky. Hope you enjoyed my ramble about the future of the electric car, my thoughts about it, and what it would take for me to buy one. Because I really don't want to buy an electric car until I know it's going to be perfect. And right now, far from perfect on a lot of levels. Especially the production of a battery, which is just disgustingly dirty. Someone says, oh, I'm saving the environment. Bullshit. Your battery's made in China and guaranteed produced more smog than any Hummer will ever have in 20, 30 years. Just guaranteed. There's no way that you'll be able to ever take back those emissions. Until then, the future's bright. We just got to make sure we keep hammering at the manufacturers to keep doing better, because if they get too complacent, we get nowhere. That's the truth. So, again, Dustin DaHusky. We'll catch you next time. Evening.